There is a mode in which the body heals itself, without pills, without surgeries, without external interventions. It has always existed. The priests of Egypt knew about it. They called it Sekhem, the living force that flows through the body when nothing blocks it. The masters who passed down the knowledge of transmutation for millennia hid this mode behind the symbols of Athanor, prima materia, and the great work. Behind the cipher lay a simple and precise principle of working with the living body. Taoist keepers described it as the state of Ziran, naturalness, when the body acts according to its original nature and disease becomes impossible. And modern science is only now beginning to confirm it. The Nobel Prize for the discovery of autophagy, the mechanism by which a cell cleanses and restores itself. Epigenetics, proving we are not slaves to our genes, we control them with our state of being. Neuroplasticity, showing the brain can renew itself at any age. Science is uncovering what the initiated have known for millennia. And today, for the first time in a long time, you will learn how to turn it on. But first, a vital question. Why is this mode turned off? Not because nature designed it that way, not because of genes, not because of age. We turned it off ourselves. Through the state we live in every single day, through chronic anxiety, the expectation of pain, the conviction that things will never get better. Every second, about 4 million new cells are born in your body. 4 million per second, without stopping. Your body does not know the fatigue of creation. It only knows one thing, a command, and you are the one giving that command. Most people for years, for decades, for their entire lives give the exact same command. Destroy yourself. Through chronic anxiety, through the expectation of pain, through the belief that things will not improve. In alchemy, this was called Nigredo without continuation, the stage of blackening, decay, the death of the old, which was supposed to be the first step of transmutation. But instead of moving into Albedo, the purification, a person would get stuck in Nigredo forever and call it life. There is an ancient principle: everything flows, nothing stands still. The body is not a static structure, it is a flow, a constant renewal, a continuous making. When the flow stops, disease begins. When the process is interrupted, aging begins. Today we are bringing this flow back through the body, using precise alchemical keys that the keepers of secret knowledge passed only to the initiated. Watch this video to the very end, because the keys will be given to you, every single one of them. Now begins a part that many will initially want to skip. Do not skip it, because it is right here that you will understand why everything we do next actually works. Without this understanding, the practice will just be movement. With it, it becomes transmutation. The difference is enormous. So, ask yourself a question you were never asked in school. Why do two people of the same age, living in the same city, eating roughly the same food, age completely differently? One looks 40 at 60, moves easily, has lively eyes. The other is already hunched, tired, and sick at 45. If it is all about genes, why does this happen with identical twins too? Identical DNA, different bodies, different rates of fading. The answer was provided by epigenetics, a science that overturned everything medicine believed in for the last 200 years. Genes are not a life sentence, they are a library, and every second you decide which books to read from it. Your emotional state, your breathing, your level of chronic tension, all of this literally turns sections of DNA on and off, biochemically, measurably. The principle of as within, so without is not just a beautiful phrase. It is a molecular reality. The state of consciousness is above, the DNA is below. They mirror each other. The Emerald Tablet described this thousands of years ago. Today, the laboratory confirms it. Now for the most important thing, something rarely talked about. When you live in chronic stress, your adrenal glands constantly release cortisol. This is a survival hormone. It is designed for a short burst to escape a predator, survive a danger, and then turn off. But modern man does not turn it off, and here is what cortisol does to the body when it is present all the time. It literally turns off autophagy, the mechanism of cellular self-cleansing. The cell stops throwing out the trash, stops renewing damaged parts. The trash accumulates. It destroys collagen, the protein that keeps tissues young and elastic. Skin, blood vessels, joints, everything hardens and loses elasticity. It suppresses immune surveillance, the ability of immune cells to find and destroy damaged, mutated cells. This is exactly why chronic stress and oncology are directly linked. And the most subtle part, it destroys the light coherence of cells. This is where the alchemy of the body begins. Under the influence of cortisol, the biophoton field of the cell shatters. The light that should be ordered like a laser becomes chaotic. Cells lose the ability to hear each other. Coordination is disrupted. Regeneration slows down. The body literally fades from the inside. A healthy cell emits ordered, coherent light like a laser. A sick, damaged, aging cell emits chaos, scattered, weak. The body is a vessel of light, and the task is not to find something on the outside, but to restore the light conductivity inside this vessel. The body must become a liquid crystal, a structure that receives light, orders it, and lets it pass through without loss. Aging is a drop in light voltage. Tissues harden, lose water, lose elasticity, and lose the ability to conduct the biophoton current. And here is the main discovery. This process is reversible. When cortisol drops, light coherence is restored. Autophagy turns back on. Immune surveillance returns. Collagen begins to be synthesized. The body has not forgotten how to be young. It was simply waiting for permission. The alchemy of health is not about external substances. It is about restoring the internal current, the internal light, the internal conductivity. And you have this current. It is simply blocked. You need this information right now, because without it, the practice that follows will seem like simple gymnastics, and it is not gymnastics. But to feel this, you need to understand the following. Your body is about 75% water, but it is not just water in a glass. It is a liquid crystal. Scientists have discovered that water inside cells is organized differently than ordinary water. It is arranged into ordered structures capable of storing and transmitting information. Like a crystal, like an antenna. In a healthy body, this water is structured, charged, alive. In a sick, tired, chronically tense body, it loses its structure and turns into a swamp. Information is not transmitted. Biophotons do not pass through. The body literally dries up from the inside. Not in the sense of thirst, but in the sense of losing the living organization of water. And now, the fascia. This is the connective tissue that wraps every muscle, every organ, every bone. It permeates the body in a continuous network from the soles of your feet to the crown of your head without a single break. Those who studied the living body for millennia described it as fiber optics, a network through which the life force flows. Today we know that the fascia does indeed conduct electrical signals and participates in the transmission of biophotons. When the fascia is healthy and glides freely, power flows. Water is structured, light moves. When the fascia gets glued together and hardens, everything stops. Dead zones are created where neither blood, nor information, nor light can reach. Where does this glue come from? From tension we never released, from emotions we held back, from blows and shocks the body absorbed and froze in the tissues. And this is why there will be wave-like movements in the practice, not linear, not sharp, precisely wave-like, because the wave is the language of water. It is a way to awaken the liquid crystal inside the body. The wave-like movement passes through the fascia, unglues it, restores the glide, and the inner ocean becomes alive again. Now you understand what this is physically. Now about what is left unspoken. About the fact that there is a force in the body capable of a complete rewrite of matter. Look at what happens during conception. From 2 cells, a complete human being is built in 9 months. 270 bones, 100 billion neurons, 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels. From 2 cells. What force does this? The very one that physiology calls sexual energy. and in sacred anatomy, the creative will of the universe localized in the human body. The keepers of the Taoist tradition called it Jing, the primary vital essence. In alchemy, the body bore the name prima materia, the primary matter from which everything can be created. And here is what all great traditions understood simultaneously, independently of each other. This force is not intended solely for reproduction. It is intended for transmutation, for turning lead into gold. And this is not a metaphor of chemistry. It is a metaphor of the body. Lead is heavy, frozen, sick tissues. Gold, living, light-conducting, regenerating ones. But there is a problem. For most people, this force is locked away, in the pelvis, in the lower centers of the body, under layers of chronic tension, fear, shame, and unlived emotions. A sealed cauldron, that is what they called it. The fire is there, but the lid is closed. Pressure builds up. But instead of rising up the spine, along the highway that alchemy called the caduceus, the force goes into destruction, into anxiety, into illness, into accelerated aging. Hidden tension in the pelvis is an order to the body. Stop creating, start surviving. And the body obeys. Immunity drops. Youth hormones stop being produced. Mitochondria fade. Transmutation is the return of movement. When the lower centers are unblocked, the force begins to rise. Up the spine, through the heart center, to the brain. This is sublimation. The transition from dense to subtle, from coarse to pure. Your brain begins to work differently, clearer, faster, more alive. Because you gave it the elixir it could not receive while the force was locked below. This is the very alchemy of health, not adding something from the outside, but freeing what was locked inside. Now for something that changes how people see themselves forever. You think you are one person. It is not so. In your body right now live about 38 trillion beings that are not you. Bacteria, viruses, fungi. They inhabit your gut, skin, lungs, mouth. There are more of them than your own cells. You are not a human. You are an entire ecosystem, a whole world. When they spoke of the spirits of matter and inner forces, they intuitively felt exactly this. They did not know the word microbiome, but they knew. Inside the body live beings that either serve life or destroy it. Science now confirms this more accurately than any ancient text. The microbiome controls your mood. 90% of serotonin, the hormone of joy and calm, is produced not in the brain, but in the gut by those very beings inside you. The microbiome controls the rate of aging. The composition of bacteria directly affects the length of telomeres, the protective caps of chromosomes that determine the biological age of a cell. The microbiome controls inflammation. Chronic inflammation, the basis of all diseases of civilization, is born right here, in this internal ecosystem. But there is something else, something that changes the whole idea of who makes decisions in your body. In the gut, there are about 100 million nerve cells. 100 million. That is more than in the spinal cord. Scientists call it the second brain. And this is not a metaphor. It is a separate nervous system that thinks, feels, and makes decisions independently of the brain. And this second brain is directly connected to the first through the vagus nerve, the very one we talked about. Here is the paradox that will overturn your understanding of yourself. When you feel a craving for something, for a certain food, a certain behavior, a certain state, it is not always your desire. It can be the desire of the beings inside you. Pathogenic bacteria feed on sugar and inflammation, and they know how to send signals along the vagus nerve directly to the brain. Signals that the brain perceives as its own desire, as its own craving, as its own choice. A person thinks, I want something sweet. I want to lie down. I do not want to move. But in reality, it is the pathogen demanding its food. It is not a weakness of will, it is biochemistry. It is an internal people that rules the host. And this is where the real alchemy of the body begins. When you realize this, you stop fighting your desires through willpower. You begin to change the composition of the internal people, because new beings, symbionts, want something else. They feed on fiber, fermented foods, peace, and joy. And they also send signals to the brain, but completely different ones. Lightness, clarity, a craving for movement, a desire to be in the light. Imagine that inside you there is a constant struggle between two armies for the right to send signals to your brain. And the result of this struggle is what you call your mood, your motivation, your energy, your illness or health. You are not just a body. You are a battlefield, and at the same time, the only one who can decide who wins. The vessel determines who lives in it. Change the environment, and the armies will change themselves. Clean the vessel, and the internal people will change on their own. This is why the great work began with the purification of the crucible. Before creating gold, you must remove what gets in the way. There is something that no doctor will tell you. You are sick not only because of what happened to you, you are sick also because of what happened to those who came before you. Epigenetics has proven the traumatic experience of ancestors is recorded in the DNA of descendants in the form of chemical tags, not as memories, but as a default biological instruction. Your great-great-grandmothers survived famine, and your cells still operate in a mode of deficit. Your ancestors survived wars, and your nervous system still scans the horizon for a threat that is not there. Chains of blood. That is what they called it in different traditions. Invisible threads that bind the living to the pain of those who are gone. Not as a curse, as an automatic inheritance that no one chose, but everyone carries. Stop for a second. Remember something you do over and over again, and you do not understand why. Anxiety without reason. A feeling that you do not deserve it. Fear of a certain situation for which there is no logical explanation. A pattern in relationships that repeats regardless of your will. This is not yours. Or rather, it is yours, but it did not come from your experience. It came from the experience of someone else that the body accepted as its own. Imagine that each of your ancestors left a small message in your DNA, a message about how to survive in the world they knew, about the threats they survived, about the pain they had to freeze to keep moving forward. They could not help but leave this message. It was an act of love, though unconscious. They wanted you to be ready. But their world is not your world. Their threats are not your threats. And their frozen pain, which they did not have time, could not, or did not have the opportunity to live through, it lives in your body as chronic tension, like glued fascia, like extinguished biophotonic light, like a quiet background war that you do not even know about. Alchemists called this the lead of ancestors, the heaviest kind of lead, because you cannot see it, you cannot hold it in your hands, but it is exactly what pulls you down the most. And here is what is important to understand. Breaking these chains does not mean betraying your ancestors. It means completing what they did not have time for, taking their strength and returning their pain to where it came from, to the past, where it belongs. You are not obligated to be sick for them. You are not obligated to continue their suffering. The deepest respect for ancestors is to become what they would have wanted to become themselves if they had the choice. Alive, healthy, free. These chains can be removed through point zero. Point zero is a state of consciousness in which linear time stops. There is no past. There is no future. There is only an infinite living now. In this state, the cell loses its orientation in time. It does not know how old it should be. It does not receive signals from the past. It receives only one signal: now. And now is always new. In alchemy, this moment was called caput mortuum, the dead head, the moment when everything old has burned away, when nothing is left in the crucible except pure possibility. And it is from this point, from absolute emptiness, that the real great work begins. Not the restoration of the old, but the creation of the new. The cell peaks at your sense of time. If you live in a constant feeling that it is already too late, that you are no longer that age, the cell receives exactly this command and begins to age on the schedule you gave it. teach it timelessness and it will stop counting. But how do you enter this point? Not through effort, through surrender. Point zero is not achieved. One falls into it, like falling into sleep. You cannot force yourself to fall asleep. You can only stop fighting wakefulness. It is the same here. Stop holding on to the past and it will let go. Stop reaching for the future and it will stop pulling you. All that remains is what is right here, right now. This breath, this warmth, this silence. In this silence there is a space without age. The initiated called it the eternal now. Not because time lasts infinitely, but because there is no time here at all. And the cell that falls into this space stops aging according to the schedule of someone else. It returns to its original program, to life. Simply to life. Give the cell the state of eternal now, and the old DNA program will be reset. The last thing you need to know before entering the practice. The body does not just live, it pulsates. Every organ has its own rhythm of activity, its own peak time, its own recovery time. This is chronobiology, a science now actively studied by the world-leading laboratories. The liver reaches its peak cleansing between 1 and 3 in the morning, the lungs between 3 and 5 in the morning, the heart between 11 and 1 in the afternoon. When a person lives in resonance with these rhythms, the body heals itself at the right time, in the right place, with the right intensity. When a person falls out of rhythm, the organ tries to recover when it should be working, and works when it should be resting. Illness is when you have fallen out of the beat of the universe. Night is not just darkness, it is an alchemical stage of maturation, citrinitas. It is in deep sleep that the body produces the greatest amount of growth hormone. It is at night that autophagy works at full capacity. It is in darkness and silence that melatonin literally repairs DNA damage. Sleep is not a weakness. Sleep is a great work that the body performs every night. When you shorten it, disrupt it, or neglect it, you interrupt the alchemy at its most important stage. And the last thing. Morning light is not just a change in lighting. It is a signal to which millions of years of evolution are tuned. It resets the circadian rhythms of all organs simultaneously. The point of synchronization. Those who met the dawn knew this instinctively. Now you know it consciously. Before we begin, one thing, the simplest and the most powerful. You are doing it right now. You have been doing it all your life, and most likely, you are doing it wrong. Breathing. This is what makes it unique among all body functions. It is both automatic and conscious. The heart beats on its own. The stomach digests on its own. But you can take breathing into your hands right now. It is the only direct channel between your will and your nervous system, and the initiated knew this. In all traditions, work with breath came first. Before movement, before meditation, before everything else, breath. Because it is through breath that the healing mode is turned on or off. Here is what happens physically. When you breathe quickly and shallowly, like most people in chronic stress, you stimulate the sympathetic nervous system, war mode, cortisol, inflammation, autophagy shutdown. When you breathe slowly and deeply, especially with a long exhale, you activate the vagus nerve. This is the main nerve of the parasympathetic system, healing mode. It is the one that gives the command, the war is over, we can build. The vagus nerve is literally the switch of the regeneration mode, and the exhale is its button. A long, slow exhale activates the vagus nerve faster than any other conscious act, faster than meditation, faster than movement, instantly. This is why in all sacred practices there is a pause after the exhale. It is not an accident. It is a precise tuning of the nervous system. The space after the exhale, when the lungs are empty and the inhale has not yet begun, that is the physical body of point zero, the body between two worlds. No inhale, no past. No exhale, no future. Only emptiness. Only possibility. It is in this pause that cortisol stops being produced. It is in this pause that the vagus nerve sends a command to all organs, renew. Now do this with me. Inhale through the nose, slowly, for a count of 4. Belly, ribs, upper chest. Hold for a count of 2. Exhale through the mouth, slowly, for a count of 8, completely to the end. Pause after the exhale for a count of 2 or 3. Just be in the emptiness. Again, feel what has changed. Shoulders dropped, jaw relaxed. Something in the chest opened. This is not imagination. The vagus nerve received the signal. Cortisol began to drop. The light coherence of cells began to restore. You have just turned on the healing mode with one exhale. And now, stand up. Because we are going further. Stand up. 3 stages. 3 stages of alchemical transmutation in the body. Nigredo, Albedo, Rubedo. The disintegration of the old, purification, restoration in a new quality. Feet slightly wider than shoulders, knees soft, arms hanging freely. Weight evenly on both legs. Now you will begin to move your hips in a horizontal figure 8. Here is what it looks like. The right hip goes to the right and slightly forward. Then the left hip goes to the left and slightly forward. The result is a soft wave-like movement in which the pelvis draws a lying 8 in the air. Not sharp, not active, as if the hips are floating on their own. Slowly, fluidly, almost lazily. It is right here in the pelvis that the primary force is sealed. Stagnant prima materia that has not moved for years. Movement is the opening of the seal. With each cycle of the 8, imagine how something dense, heavy, gray begins to soften, melt, become fluid. This is Nigredo, the stage of decay. Everything old must melt before it becomes new. 36 eighths, slowly, without stopping. Now add breath. When the hips go forward, inhale. When they go back, a long exhale. As if with each exhale, you are releasing what you held for years. Feel the warmth that begins to rise. This is the first fire of the Athanor, the alchemical furnace of your body, flaring up after a long sleep. Stop. Feet shoulder-width apart. Feet firmly on the floor, knees slightly bent. Now we will raise the force you just awakened. Direct your attention to your feet. Feel the floor under your soles, its hardness, its temperature, every centimeter of contact. On a slow inhale, begin to lift the feeling of warmth from the bottom up, like a wave of water rising through a tube. Feet, ankles, knees, hips, stomach, solar plexus, chest, shoulders, neck, crown. Do not pull with muscles, lead with attention. Warmth is the trace that your attention leaves on the way up. Blood flow increases. Fascia softens. Water inside cells begins to structure. Every organ through which the wave passes receives the signal, renew. 5 waves. From the bottom up, slowly. After each wave, hold your breath at the top point for 5 seconds. In this pause is point 0. The cell loses track of time. After the 5th wave, stand quietly. Feel the whole body simultaneously, from feet to crown, as a single warm space. Stand straight, hands down or folded in front of the heart. Eyes closed. In Rubedo, the stage of gold, the transmuted substance begins to self-radiate. It becomes not just pure, it becomes active. Direct your attention inward, not to the shape of the body, deeper. To what is behind the muscles, to what is behind the organs, to the cells. Feel or imagine that inside you are billions of living beings. Each cell is a separate life. It breathes, it receives, it gives, it waits for a signal. And now, without words, without a mantra, only through feelings, pass a state to each cell. Not a command, not a desire, just a state of absolute safety. When the war is over, when we can build, when time is infinitely long, when there is nothing to fear. The cell feels this. It peeks at your inner state every second. It is its way of knowing how to work. Show it peace. Slowly begin to expand the sensation of your body beyond the skin. A few centimeters, half a meter, further. This is the biophotonic field, the light radiation of your cells, aligning, ordering itself, becoming coherent. Let this field carry one intention. Every cell of this body is renewed. Every cell of this body is healthy. Every cell of this body is alive. 5 minutes of silence. Only breath. Only this state. Before I say the last thing, stop for a second right now in this state. Listen carefully. In alchemy, the great work was considered complete only when the master fixed the result. While the metal melts in the crucible, it is a process. But when it becomes gold, the master must fix this new reality with his will. Do not leave this state for the mundane. Right now, fix your transformation of matter through words. I offer you 2 paths. Choose the one that resonates with your heart. The path of a manifesto. Write our common formula of power in the comments, sealing it in space. I reclaim my right to eternal renewal. My inner Athanor is lit, and every cell of mine remembered its right to eternal renewal. Or the path of living witness. If inside you right now there is a storm or a ringing silence, simply write what you feel. Where in the body did this impulse respond? Warmth? Expansion? Pulsation? Your feelings are the proof that transmutation has begun. And the most important thing, if you watch this video on the way and plan to do the practice later, save this video. When you live through this experience in silence, come back here and fix your result. For those who are ready to make this their new norm of life, all practices and our closed field of communication await you in my Telegram channel via the link in the description. There we go even deeper. Your word is a seal. Let your power manifest in this world. I will read every single one of your messages. Let us create a field of living, awakened power here. Come back. Slowly. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel the weight of your body, the very body that once unfolded from 2 cells into a grand architecture of 270 bones and 100 billion neurons. Take 3 deep breaths. What has happened to you during this hour is not just an exercise and not relaxation. It is a deep transformation of matter. In alchemy, lead that has passed through the fire of the Athanor can no longer return to its former heavy form. You have just passed through this inner fire. Something in you has changed irreversibly. Biochemically, neurologically, at the level of the most subtle epigenetic tags. Your nervous system has received a new experience, the experience of the body in creation mode, not survival mode. And now it knows that it is possible. This knowledge cannot be taken away from you. You are no longer a victim of time, not an archive of the illness of ancestors. Your biology is clay, and you are the only sculptor. The Hermetic principle, as above, so below, works both ways. You changed the state above in consciousness, and the below, your DNA, immediately responded. The great work is not turning metal into gold. It is turning a person into a fully living being, and you have just taken your first step.